We'll now proceed to the bill related to the Criminal Justice Training Commission, Trauma-Informed Training, Senate Bill 5356. There's a panel here. Let's hear from Blair Daly and Kristen Lewis and Baron Lee. Baron, why don't you go ahead first?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we're all set.
Yeah, my name is Baron Lee, and I live in Issaquah. I'm here to talk to you about the term gender-based violence. I'll start by sharing that my ex-wife is currently serving 13 years in prison here in Washington. Why? Because she hired someone to murder me. I'll say that again. My ex-wife paid someone to murder me so that she would get the money in our disabled son's trust fund. The person she hired shot me 9 times outside my apartment in Bellevue, but I survived. I know something about being a victim of domestic violence. The term gender-based violence is a biased term that has the effect of excluding victims of violence like me. Am I a victim of gender-based violence? I know that some of this bill is about sexual assault. According to the CDC, over half of women and almost 1/3 of men have experienced sexual violence involving physical contact during their lifetime. How is it appropriate to substitute the words gender-based violence for sexual violence? Or if gender-based violence is supposed to be something distinct from sexual violence, which seems to be the case in Section 4 in the bill, then what exactly is gender-based violence? Why is there no definition in the bill or anywhere in our state law? People hear the words gender-based violence and probably what they usually think of is violence against women. That is exactly the intent of some of the groups that want us using this term. I know this because I've read the definition of the term on the website of Coalition Ending Gender-Based Violence, a Seattle organization. Our state law should not show favoritism towards victims based on their sex or gender. We don't need the term gender-based violence in this law. Please remove it from this chapter of the RCWs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's quite enlightening. Blair, now go ahead.
Sure, thank you, Chair Goodman and members of the committee. My name is Blair Daly. I'm requesting that the term gender-based violence be removed from this bill. In parts of the bill, that term is redundant and it won't need replacing. In other parts, more appropriate and precise terms can be swapped in for the words gender-based violence. I've heard one legislator defend the term gender-based violence based on a belief that victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking are overwhelmingly female. I've also heard that professionals in the field use it, so government should use it. I'm going to contend with both of those points. First, it's false that victims of these crimes are overwhelmingly female. Let's look at statistics. The CDC says 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men experience severe physical violence from an intimate partner. For coercive control specifically, Bellevue's LifeWire DV organization cites the CDC's finding that 41% of women and 43% of men experience coercive control. That's equal rates of coercive control. Sexual assault victims, according to the CDC, over half of women and almost 1/3 of men. Human trafficking victims, according to a recent United Nations report, 40% are boys and men. 40%. Even if women and girls were the overwhelming majority of victims, taking a majoritarian approach to language is the opposite of inclusive and progressive. On Memorial Day, for example, we rightly acknowledge the men and women who died, though it's overwhelmingly men. We rightly replaced policemen and firemen with police officer and firefighter, though it's overwhelmingly men in those roles. But in this instance, with the term gender-based violence, it's somehow the right thing to marginalize a minority. Now, it's true that some professionals in the field are using the term gender-based violence, but professionals and fields are not infallible. Sometimes they make mistakes. They can course correct. In conclusion, like Baron Lee, who spoke just before me, I am a documented male survivor of female-perpetrated violence. It was domestic violence. It was intimate partner violence. It was not gender-based violence. Let us move away from popularizing the notion that domestic violence or sexual violence are gender-based violence. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have one more person to testify on this topic, and then Representative Davis has a question. Kristen Lewis, are you with us?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, please go ahead.
I'm Kristen Lewis. I'm the former director of a Canadian nonprofit that opened Canada's first domestic violence shelters for men. I hold a JD from the University of Victoria and a Master's of Law from York University. I did extensive coursework in trauma-informed approaches to family violence. At the University of Victoria, I was blessed to work with Canadian leaders in the field, Sarah Ramshaw and Gillian Calder. I currently work at a leading family law firm in Ottawa, where I support clients, including men, seeking legal protection from coercive control and family violence. I bring to this hearing the memory of the tears of many male survivors who have come to me over the years after exiting abusive relationships, seeking validation, safety, and responsive legal supports. Their tears speak to the reality that men are survivors of intimate partner violence and sexual abuse at rates that conflict with the popularization of the ideology of gender-based violence. I've worked with cisgender men and trans men, gay men, straight men, bi men, all men. They've told me about the difficulties they faced accessing resources. They've told me about not being believed. By institutionalizing the concept of gender-based violence, the legislature will further marginalize male victims. I know men who were abused as children, sometimes by their mothers. As boys, they struggled to speak to the violence they experienced. The culture told them, and still does, that violence against girls is of greatest concern. Criminal justice professionals should not be trained with the outdated narrative of male perpetration and female victimization. Washington state should take the lead in deciding that the term gender-based violence has no place in the laws of a state that's committed to the safety of all people. I believe you want gay and trans men who bring so much to your communities to know their safety matters. I believe that you want today's boys and young men to have a future where their victimization is taken seriously and where we do not silence the experience of male survivors. You can do that by refusing to bind your legislation to the flawed concept of gender-based violence. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much to all of you. Representative Davis has a question, perhaps for each of you or all of you, and you're free to answer. So, Chair recognizes Representative Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, my question is for Blair. So, Blair, we've met, as you're aware, and you were absolutely referring to me when you talked about a legislator. You were referring specifically to me in the Healthcare Committee turning down an amendment that you had requested to remove the term gender-based violence from a different piece of legislation. And my question to you is, what I stated at the time and what you just attempted to argue against was the disproportionality in these crimes against women. That is particularly profound and particularly acute when it comes to intimate partner homicide. Those cases, the victims are overwhelmingly female, overwhelmingly male perpetrated. That is also true with serious violent assault, and it is also and especially true with coercive control. Happy to send you some data. I've been to nearly every national domestic violence conference in the United States over the last several years, and coercive controlling behavior is a uniquely male-perpetrated suite of behaviors perpetrated almost exclusively toward female victims. So feel free to respond to that.
Blair,
Thank
go ahead.
you. Well, I do disagree with that assertion. I don't know if what you would make of the CDC statistics that LifeWire cites about 41% of women and 43% of men experiencing coercive control. I don't know what you'd make of the CDC statistics about 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men experiencing severe physical violence. I do agree with you that most intimate partner homicides have female victims, but intimate partner homicides, while the most shocking and horrific of all domestic violence, are an extremely small percentage of all domestic violence. My understanding is that this bill is not specific to preventing or training about only intimate partner homicides.
And as somebody who has worked on a couple of bills with Senator Orwell, I think the term gender-based violence is actually there to include men, to include trans men, to include minorities, to include everybody else that's part of the spectrum of suffering this type of violence. So when I hear gender-based violence, I definitely think of men. I think of trans men. I think of Black trans women, and everybody who has a lot harder time being believed due to the oppressive ways of the patriarchy and systems of power. So I urge your support on this bill.